Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're tackling a question that's probably crossed your mind, like every time you've tried to learn something new, how well do you actually understand it?
Mm-hmm. That feeling of knowing versus really knowing.
Exactly. And we've got some really interesting research that gets right to the heart of this. It looks at how our own assessments, our judgments about our learning, impact the learning process itself.
Yeah, especially with a specific type of learning called inductive learning.
Right, inductive learning. That's where you learn by seeing patterns, figuring out general rules. Like the study uses learning different types of butterflies as an example.
Precisely. And you know that moment during studying where you pause and think, okay, how well do I get this?
Yeah, that's self-check.
Well, the big question is, does that act of self-assessment, just doing that check, actually give your learning a boost?
For the stuff you're learning right then, or even for stuff you learned earlier.
Both, potentially. And the study we're digging into really focuses on that within this inductive learning, this butterfly context.
Okay, so let's get specific. The main source for our deep dive today is a study, pretty recent, published in the Educational Psychology Review in June 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Evaluating the Judgment of Learning, Its Limited Impact and the Power of Retrieval on Inductive Learning by Hiram Ha and Hee-Sung Lee.
Right. And they ran 3 experiments, all using this butterfly identification task.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The first thing they looked into was this idea called JOL reactivity. What exactly is that, and what did experiment 1 find?
Yeah, JOL reactivity.
Yeah.
But simply, it's the theory that the very act of making a judgment about your learning, a JOL, judgment of learning,
Okay.
that making that judgment itself might improve your learning. Like your brain gets a little extra activation just by thinking about how much you know.
Huh. Interesting idea.
So experiment 1 tested this directly. Participants studied 2 sets of butterfly info. Let's call them section A and section B.
Got it. Set A, then set B.
Right. And between studying A and B, some people were asked to make JOLs basically rate how well they thought they'd learned section A.
While others just...
Others just restudied section A, no judgment involved.
Okay, so the key comparison was, did making those judgments, even if you weren't, like, actively trying to recall the butterflies, make any real difference compared to just reviewing the material again?
And, well, the finding was pretty clear. Merely making those JOLs, it didn't significantly boost their learning on the final test.
Really? Not at all.
Not significantly, no, not compared to the group that just restudied. So that kind of intuitive idea that just thinking about your learning helps, well, it didn't really hold water here, at least for this type of learning.
Okay, so just thinking, yeah, I think I get this isn't the magic bullet, that's a really important first point.
Definitely.
But they didn't stop there, right?
Yeah.
Experiment 2 brought in something different. Active recall. Tell us about that.
Right. Experiment 2 introduced what they called overt retrieval.
Overt retrieval.
Yeah, meaning that while participants were making their judgments about section A, the first butterflies, they were also explicitly prompted to try and recall specific details about them.
Ah, okay. So not just judging, but actively trying to remember.
Exactly. And this group was compared to others who only made the judgments without the recall part or just restudied like before.
And this is where it gets more interesting, you said.
This is where it gets really intriguing, yeah, because the results shifted.
How so? What did they find?
Well, the group that did the active recall while making their judgments showed what's called a forward effect.
Oh, forward effect.
Meaning they actually performed significantly better on the final test for the new material they learned after the judgment phase, section B, the second set of butterflies.
Wow. Okay, so trying to remember the first set helped them learn the second set better.
That's what it looks like.
Right.
Better than the groups who only judged or only restudied. So the key seems to be the act of trying to remember. That effortful retrieval seems to prime your brain, it makes it more receptive to the new information coming in.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's
Yeah.
the mental effort, the digging for the information, not just the passive assessment.
Seems that way.
But then, experiment 3 tried to tease this apart even further, didn't it? Comparing retrieval practice with JOLs versus retrieval practice without them.
Exactly. Experiment 3 really wanted to isolate. Is it the retrieval or does the JOL add something extra on top?
So what were the groups this time?
They had one group do retrieval practice for section A and then make JOLs, just like the high-performing group in experiment 2.
Uh-huh.
And they compared them to another group that only did the retrieval practice for section A with no JOL afterwards.
Okay, so basically retrieval plus judgment versus just retrieval. And the results.
The results were quite telling. For learning the new information, Section B, combining the JOLs with the recall, was just as effective as doing the retrieval practice on its own.
Ah, so no extra benefit from adding the judgment on top of the retrieval for learning the new stuff.
Exactly. It suggests that the big benefit they saw in Experiment 2, that forward effect on Section B, was primarily driven by the retrieval attempt itself.
Not the judgment that came after it.
Right. The JOL didn't seem to add a significant boost for future learning beyond what the retrieval already provided in this setup.
So thinking about practical learning, it really points to the power of that retrieval step, doesn't it? Like self-testing.
Absolutely. That seems to be the real workhorse here for enhancing subsequent learning.
Now, the study also looked into something else, this backward effect. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the backward effect. This is the idea that maybe pesting yourself, doing that retrieval on Section A,
Uh-huh.
might also strengthen your memory for Section A itself, the material you were actually retrieving. Does it help you remember the stuff you already learned?
Okay, so did retrieving info about the first butterflies help people remember those first butterflies better later on?
That's what they checked. They looked specifically at whether doing retrieval, especially retrieval combined with JOLs, improved memory for Section A compared to just restudying it.
Did it work?
Well, this is another really interesting finding. They found no significant backward effect.
None. Even when people successfully recalled some butterflies during that retrieval phase.
Right. They even dug deeper, analyzing performance just for the specific butterflies people were able to recall successfully during that intermediate test.
And still nothing.
Still no significant overall boost in retention for Section A on the final test compared to the rest study group. Even successfully retrieving some items didn't seem to translate into a better overall memory for that first set of information later on.
That is quite surprising, actually. You'd think recalling it would cement it better. Did the researchers have any ideas why this might be?
They did offer a couple of thoughts. One possibility they mentioned was varying difficulty levels between the butterfly species.
So maybe the rest study group did okay on the easy ones, washing out any retrieval benefit on the harder ones.
Potentially, yeah. It's hard to say definitively. But they did note that the lack of a backward effect was pretty consistent across different analyses. It just wasn't there in their data.
Okay, so if we boil all this down then, based on this Han and Lee research, the big headline seems to be the power of retrieval practice.
Definitely.
Just thinking about how well you know something, that JOL, it doesn't seem to do much on its own, at least here,
Right.
but actively trying to recall information.
That's the key. That active retrieval seems to be the real driver for improving learning, especially for paving the way to learn new related things effectively.
It's the engine.
It really appears to be.
Yeah.
While self-assessment, checking in with yourself, probably has its place somewhere in the whole learning picture.
Sure.
The heavy lifting, the thing that really strengthens understanding and helps future learning in this context, seems to be that effortful active retrieval, testing yourself, basically.
So bringing it all together, for you listening, this deep dive really suggests that when you're learning, maybe don't put too much stock in just that feeling of familiarity. Oh yeah, I recognize this.
Right. That can be deceptive.
The real boost seems to come from actively trying to pull the information out of your own head, that mental workout.
Exactly. So think about your own study habits. Are you mostly just rereading or reviewing?
Yeah, highlighting.
Highlighting, yeah. These findings really encourage shifting some of that time and effort towards active recall. Try to bring the key points to mind without looking at your notes. Explain it out loud.
That struggle, that effort, seems to be where the magic happens.
It really does, particularly for making that knowledge stick and helping you learn what comes next.
Okay, and on that note, let's leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Yeah.
This research, remember, was focused on inductive learning categories from specific examples, like the butterflies.
Specific context.
So how might these findings translate to other kinds of learning? Like what about really abstract concepts in philosophy? Or maybe learning a physical skill like playing guitar?
That's a great question. Does retrieval practice hold that same kind of power across the board? Or are there maybe situations where those judgments of learning, the JOLs, might actually play a bigger, more direct role?
Yeah, could the type of learning change the equation? This study gives us a really strong hint for this kind of pattern-based learning.
Absolutely. It points strongly towards retrieval.
But there's always more to explore, isn't there, in this whole fascinating world of how our brains learn.
Always. It's a complex process.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
My pleasure.